Alright, 10 minutes starts now. The movie of the week is Snitch. This is Cinema Sound Off. I am your host, Jake. Snitch is PG-13, runs at an hour and 52 minutes. Last week we saw A Good Day to Die Hard, starring the incredibly badass, yet still old. Did that make sense? No, it didn't.
Yes, it did.
He's
not getting any younger.
Yes, it actually
Bruce
did.
Willis is what he's trying to say.
Bruce Willis in A Good Day to Die Hard. This week,
Snitch.
The Rock.
Starring Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
So, Tyler, why don't you go ahead and introduce us into Snitch?
Alright, so basically the movie is about The Rock's son. He gets involved, I don't want to spoil anything, he gets involved with some shady stuff that he shouldn't be doing, and then eventually he's sent to prison, and The Rock has to try to lower his sentence by doing a bunch of shady stuff for the DEA, and yeah, so that's about...
Well put, man. Once again, Cinema Sound Off. I am Jake. This is the only podcast where our groupies double as guest stars.
Today is Nick Bush.
Nick Bush.
We have Nick Bush. How's it going, man?
Hey, good. How are you guys doing?
Nick Bush is my former compadre from film school before I dropped out.
We won't talk on that subject too much.
Yes, moving on. So, opening thoughts on the movie Snitch. Let's start with our newbie Nick. What'd you think?
I don't know. It just really didn't wow me enough. I mean, there were some pretty cool action sequences. I mean, and some kind of hardcore drama, which I was kind of intrigued
Lots
with.
of drama.
Lots of drama, yeah.
Just so you know, there's a lot of talking and a lot of building to
This
things.
movie was not advertised right.
Yeah, don't go to this movie thinking you're gonna see Die Hard or like a Schwarzenegger movie because it's not super action.
Well, that's the
on.
kind of thing I felt about Killer Elite, you know, the Jason Statham, Robert De Niro movie. That's the same thing. They advertise it as an action movie. So
And
there's
same
not
thing,
too
this
much.
was just bad marketing. I
Yeah,
mean,
like,
this is-
Exactly.
Well, I mean, to me, like I see The Rock and I'm thinking like rock bottoms and people's elbows and shooting people and kicking ass, and he
And
wasn't
selling
doing
cookies.
these things. And you know, he did
Right,
cook, and I smell
right.
what he was cooking, but you know, in
All
the
right,
long run,
Seb, what'd you think of it, man?
I thought it was good. I can definitely agree that it wasn't as actiony as I thought it was going to be. It had good action. More towards the end, I would say, is where they primarily focused the action. And
Naturally, and that's what
Build
the
up to
climax
it.
is.
yeah, and it's really only action, like in the end, you know. But the drama, it was still really dramatic, and it was pretty suspenseful. I thought, because you're like, how the hell is this gonna work? What's going on?
And you seemed pretty into it. Like, we were kind of messing
I looked
around in the
over.
theater, but you were pretty eyes locked on the screen.
Well, I
You
mean,
were just like-
sit next to Tyler. I used to watch wrestling. He loves wrestling. So, I mean, we had all of the Rock puns, of course. But I thought it was interesting. It was a good story.
yeah. Can I
Right
say
on.
something about the drama right now?
Go
Like,
ahead.
They like in the movie, I think they kind of wanted you to feel sorry for The Rock's son. Like, didn't you kind of get that vibe? Like,
Yeah, I did.
But I didn't feel sorry for him. Like, I don't know about you guys. Like, he was like, you know, in trouble for something, and he wanted to like do drugs. And I thought he was really stupid that he wouldn't take the bargain offered to him in the beginning, which left his dad to like do all of his dirty work.
That's kind of true. But
Well,
then,
like-
then again, it kind of upped the odds.
Yeah.
And also, I learned in this movie that MDA is ecstasy. Fun,
Yeah.
fun things you learn in film, you know?
drug lingo taught to you by The
Didn't
Rock.
know that. I didn't really get the sympathy part. I thought. I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't really. Like, I don't think they were trying to make him feel bad for him. I think he was just in a shitty situation.
Yeah.
I think he was just in a
Seb's
shitty
itching himself.
situation. And The Rock, his dad helped him out. I think if
we can just
if,
call him The
If we
Rock.
say
He
The
is
Rock,
The
we all
Rock.
know who he's
It's just
talking
funny to
about.
think of him as The Rock in the movie.
Yeah.
People are like, holy shit, that's The Rock.
Like, they don't call him Dwayne Johnson. They just call him The Rock.
Dwayne The Rock, the Tooth Fairy Johnson.
Dwayne The Rock, the Tooth Fairy
Please forget
Johnson.
Tooth Fairy happened. He is your WWE champion. You should show him some respect.
I should. Let's talk about the acting real quick. You guys may want to stab me for this, but I feel like The Rock's acting was the weakest point in this movie.
I don't know.
Compared to, like, a pretty decent lineup with, like, Susan Sarandon and,
The guy from The Walking Dead.
Yes.
I can't remember his
and
actual
the
name.
guy from A Wire and The Road.
Omar from The Wire.
He was amazing. He was, like...
He made that movie at least 10 times better.
I agree, man.
Like, I saw his face and I was like,
I don't know, maybe it's just me. I like only cared about The Rock being in the movie, but I think that goes back
well,
to
I mean, you're
liking
supposed to care
wrestling,
about him.
so-
He's the main character.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, I thought he was I think he did a decent job. I mean, he's definitely been in better movies, better suited to him, like The Rundown and Walking Tall. You know, so I mean, it wasn't that, but it was different for him.
I thought it was a little bit interesting with The Rock playing a dad. I didn't think he was that old. He's not that old in my
He's
book.
40.
But still, I mean, to have a teenage son.
He's been around for a while.
Yeah.
But I mean, I thought the acting was pretty good. I think The Rock is a good actor. I think like when you watch actors, you kind of like pay attention to like facial expressions and stuff like that too. And I think he kind of like stays in a certain set of facial expressions, which doesn't really give him like a wide variety of acting. If that does that make sense?
Yeah, always raised his eyebrow. I mean, that's usually a staple.
But it's badass when he raises his eyebrow.
It works because The Rock is fucking huge and he can destroy it. And I did like that Shane from The Walking Dead. That's his name in The Walking Dead. I don't know his name was in it. There wasn't really anyone else in it that was too famous except for Susan Sarandon. Whatever was it? She was a DAA chick, right?
Yeah.
Notice some of the puns you and me were making while watching the movie.
That's true.
Just a bunch of Rocky Horror puns.
All right. What about the special effects? The only thing that really like kind of ticked me off a little bit was that one explosion that I was just like, oh, that's CGI.
It was just so out of the place.
Are you talking about like minor spoiler alert? I guess like a car hits something and it explodes like randomly.
I wouldn't call that spoilers, but
well, whatever. I mean, like it exploded and like for no real reason. Like usually to explode a car, you have to shoot the gas tank or whatever. But this car just hit something head on
explosion
and
logic.
Like, and none of the other cars that toppled over or anything like that exploded. That one just went.
Yeah, this one just kind of hit a Jersey.
Well, you had to have like one explosion for the trailer, right?
That's true.
What's a Rock movie without an explosion?
The Tooth Fairy.
All right. Does this movie remind you of anything? Is there a movie that you're like, oh, I've seen
it
this
seems
before?
It might just be me, but it seems like since the cartel is a raising problem in Mexico right now, it seems like there's been more cartel movies.
That's true.
End of Watch.
Savages.
Savages, End of Watch.
Mm-hmm.
You know what?
This one. I'm sure there's others that I just can't think of, but it reminds me of those in a way. Rather than that, it was like by itself in its own.
Yeah, and I like that in a movie. It's its own thing.
It was different. Mm-hmm. You know what? Like I don't know if it's just me, but the lighting in the movie, like the kind of like darker lighting, the like shading they use, it kind of reminded me of like 8 Mile with Eminem. You know, look at that, like the lighting.
I can see it now that I think of it.
Well, the only thing that reminded me of any sort of movie was when he goes to the drug deal, like or the drug part of town where all the dealers are, and he tries to catch them. It reminded me a lot of the movie. It's called Super, starring Rainn Wilson. And I was just expecting him to get out a giant wrench and just start beating the drug dealers with it. That's what the
super.
I expected a couple rock bottoms and suplexes, but
I wanted him to do at least one of those.
All right, guys, let's make this next topic short and sweet. Is this appropriate for kids? It's PG-13.
Well,
there's drugs.
You would think in our theater it was, because the whole time we were watching the movie, a baby was crying, like literally 90% of the movie. And also, funny story, when the lady was leaving the theater to take the baby out, finally, she dropped the kid on the stairs. It was hilariously horrible.
Back onto the movie.
Yes.
In the very end of the movie, it says a fact about drugs, and I think drugs is a huge growing problem in America right now, honestly, like especially among the youth, because they're so feeble-minded and they fall to it really easily. I think that how it says that like the lowest amount for a drug dealer or whatever is like higher than rape, child molestation, stuff like that. It was like kind of getting message. Yeah, it gives a good point across, and people should realize that. I think that's just coming from a bias.
Yeah.
Okay. Right on, man.
I agreed. The question about is it appropriate for kids? It was PG-13.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a couple swear words and a couple N-words from Colored.
Nothing really gory, so I mean...
It was just the situations were really mature.
It was mature situations, It
wasn't
well labeled, man.
Like, I don't think some children would get that. Like, they wouldn't get how a father would risk his life for his kids.
He just likes sniffing like salt.
Like, they don't understand.
Well, I mean, you saw how his like friends set him up for it.
Yeah.
He didn't even say, "Oh, you can send it to my house." He was like, "I don't know about that." All right, guys, we have like 40 seconds left, so let's make some closing comments. Short and sweet, Seb. What'd you think?
It's a good movie. Should I give it a rating out of 10?
You should give it a rating.
I would give it. It's a good It's a high 8. Like
it's a high
8.8. I'm giving it
8.8.
Wow, that's like the highest you've given so far.
I like The Rock. He's pretty awesome. It was
right on.
It was suspenseful. It was pretty realistic. Like I said, I like Shane from The Walking Dead. I really like the point that they tried to get across too. So, in my book, it was a good movie.
All right.
I'd recommend it.
So I also liked it. I thought it was slower than I expected, but that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. They were just setting up things later, and I like The Rock a lot. So it's
a lot of bias here going on, but it's
yeah.
positive.
I like The Rock. He's cool, and I liked it. They got pretty suspenseful. I'd probably give it maybe not as high as Seb, but maybe like a 7.8 out of 10.
7.8.
7.8. Yeah.
No solid
Copy
numbers.
my
All right,
0.8.
Nick. Closing comments. What'd you think?
Nicky Poo.
Me, I thought it was okay. I mean,
Okay.
it wasn't the greatest movie, but also wasn't the worst. I mean,
Mhm.
I liked some parts of it. I kind of didn't like other parts, which we always have. But this one was kind of even on both ends.
Mhm.
The Omar from The Wire. I can't remember the actor's name right now. He's probably my favorite part of the film, but that is against some bias, kind of like you guys. But me, I'd probably give it like a 7 or a 6.9.
A 7 or a 6.9. Right on,
Classy 69.
man.
Always classy.
All right, I'll wrap this up real quick. The movie we saw this week was Snitch. I liked it. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't horrible. I'd give it a 7. It's not really marketed well. It's not an action movie. It's a suspense drama, and I thought The Rock ended up pulling it off in the end.
I smelled what he was cooking.
You smelt what he was cooking.
Yeah.